And this is the game they're going to play. They're going to hyperinflate you away where you can't pay your taxes. So you'll either have to sell off your land or you can't, because if it's owned by the bank and you're on a note, you're going to have to give up your land, pure and simple.
I'm going to take it to the next level. You wait for everything. You wait for directions on when you can go outside and get fresh air. You wait for directions on what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it, when it's going to be delivered.
Investors could still see some of the strongest price action in gold this year, according to Wells Fargo, which sees signs of a developing rally. Money managers believe we could see inflation reach new levels that we have not seen since the Jimmy Carter era. For centuries, investors around the globe have turned to gold in times of economic uncertainty. Gold supplies have flipped from excessive to deficient, and such times in the past have sparked some of gold's strongest price rallies, unquote. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA. So go ahead and give the folks at Patriot Gold Group a call to discuss physical gold and silver. And the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 5 years in a row from 2016 until present. Click the link in the description box below for more information. And now on with the video. Yeah, and I would say pemmican would be a good one. If nobody knows what pemmican is, you take the meat after it's been dried, and then you can mix it with berries and some other fats, and then it doesn't require refrigeration for storage, and it's a powerhouse. Well, they don't suggest deer meat too much because it's so lean, but it was more on the beef side. And also the dehydration, either using a dehydrator or a freeze dryer. So to get the meat ready for storage before there's a power outage, because, Ransom, I hate to say it, but I really believe during this great reset, they're going to take the power down for days or weeks to make everybody's food spoil in their freezers. Because how much meat and protein source is stored in a lot of freezers and refrigerators across North America here? A huge, gigantic, unbelievable amount. So if you were a government and you wanted to starve the people out, what would you do? If you take the electricity down for 2 weeks, probably 80% of the people are going to lose all the meat, all the frozen vegetables, all the frozen fruit that they have stored up, which would probably be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds, which would be enough for a family for 3-4 months. Even if a total grid down situation, that family, provided the power's up and could keep everything refrigerated if you had generators or whatnot, that would be enough for a family to stay, well-fed, completely calorie-rich and fully energized for months and months and months and months, even if it went down over everything else, even if the full food supply stopped. They would be fully fed for months. So, think about how nefarious our governments of the planet are with this reset. They want everybody kowtowing, standing in line, at 100% beholden on government. So it would not surprise me at all in any way, shape, or form that they would take out electricity on purpose to starve people who have what you talked about, frozen foods, stored foods. Got to think of way beyond it. Pemmican, dehydration, and freeze drying for meats.
Absolutely. I really feel like, and I'm saying I feel like because of kind of the way that the algorithms work, that we're at a point right now where there are powers out there that know exactly what's going on, what cycle we're going in, and you're getting a taste of organized chaos out there in the world right now. So I have a whole line of articles talking about inflation. When we first started talking on this show, and I kept bringing it up a lot about what's going to happen when the COVID payments stop, when everything opens back up, there's going to be millions of properties up that the banks will take back. And that's exactly what's going on right now already. The U.S., I forget which court it is, I think it was the Ninth Circuit or someone ruled that it's okay to kick you out of the house because it's unconstitutional to stop the banks from taking your stuff. You notice how they always cite the Constitution when it is in favor of the banks. But all of these properties are going up. They're talking about super inflation, food shortages. And now we're at the point where we have to learn how to live without electricity, and not only that, circumvent their entire system. Well, there's an invisible enemy that's trying to get all your inherited wealth if you have any in your family. They want all of your retirement if you've earned any in your lifetime. They want every possible avenue of resources that will help you take care of yourself. And then at the end, they're in control of the food. So every single choice decision that you make has already been kind of made for you on what you're going to choose, how you're going to buy it, where you're going to buy it, when you're going to get to eat it. And like you said, think about these power turnoffs and the fact that it's come out that some of these companies that run these power companies, they planned on turning it off in an Enron style scheme, I'm going to call it, to have power prices go up because people realize the importance of energy in their lives when new extreme temperatures are moving into where they live, where they're not really used to dealing with it. Even though these temperatures have been around on other cycles, the public wasn't informed of that, so they just thought things were going to keep going the way they were forever. Rolling power outages, another thing we were talking about. Everybody's been talking about that. They started it in California, they did it in Texas, and recently I drove by in freezing temperatures in the low single digits and rolled by those windmills in New Mexico that were cranking along just fine in the cold weather with the ice and the sub-zero temperatures. So for my opinion, what it's worth, I think that all of that was, went along with their already planned power outage, and get used to it. And every time that happens, everything warms up right afterwards. And then you have to go buy new faucets and new plumbing and new food and all of this stuff. That's another angle to completely bankrupt you as a citizen that's independent and the ability to be self-sufficient, which a lot of people still have, that you have the resources now before our country's totally poverty stricken to turn things around on not a local level, but on a personal level with you and your property and your lifestyle, and get rid of the idea of being attached to the internet and power as an answer for everything.
Yeah, you brought up a good point there. This confiscation of the land, and I would call it wave one, what you described, where everything has been put off. Landlords were not able to pay on their notes or their mortgages either because their tenants didn't pay, especially if you had like a 10-door unit, a 20-door unit, maybe 80 doors there on your unit size, or 80 apartments in there. They call it like 80, how many doors you have. If you ever watch Grant Cardone, who is a good motivational guy, if you're thinking about trying to start your morning right to focus your day, you can get in a whole bunch of motivational speakers, Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone. There's a few others out there, but he's super into real estate and always talking about 80 doors, man. You want nothing less than 120 doors. And those people are not going to be able to haven't been able to make their mortgage payments. So imagine when it comes and all these states open up, and then suddenly they're hit with a full year of payments at $100,000 a year, or $100,000 a month, or $20,000 a month. Okay, is anybody going to have like $250,000 to plunk down in cash because none of the tenants had paid? At what point do you go, all right, tenant, you didn't pay for the last whole 1 year. You're out of here now. Okay, well, are they going to give them any money? So this is going to be wave one of the confiscation of land. Okay, so this whole great reset, when they say in 2030, that one video that said you will own nothing and you'll be happy. The beginning of the land confiscation begins now. Wave one are those landlords, tenants, people who can't afford. Mainly it's going to be tenants and larger, apartment holders that are going to get wiped out of the game. Then all of a sudden government owns all these properties that have multiple units on them that then they can house people for free, hence universal basic income beginning. They're going to take over the property, and then suddenly there's an enormous amount of housing at a moment's notice for the government to give away or use. Secondly, with the power outages you talked about there, the water damage on the houses, you've seen those few articles too, where they're saying, hey, please, any plumber in America, any plumber in Canada, if you're a plumber in the EU, we'll get you a visa to come over and work right now. They don't have enough plumbers across the entire planet to come in for the next year to even fix the damage from the water broken pipes. Think about a homeowner for a second. They're underwater. They haven't been working for 12 months. The bank froze the payments so they couldn't get their house, repossessed, foreclosed on. Now you got about 50 grand worth of water damage in there, and suddenly they're going to let up on all the restrictions. Now, what's going to happen? You're going to be foreclosed on anyway. So would you wait it out for the next 6 months to a year, living in a damp, moldy house to try to get it repaired maybe? No way. You're going to walk away from that. So then that's another way for the government to come in and confiscate personal property. I mean, you're talking about probably 100,000 houses at least at the bare minimum, and then not even to mention the commercial real estate that have been affected as well. So between that and the let off of all the freeze in evictions, apartment confiscation, which is going to probably be 500,000 different apartment units across the U.S. from small to large, the government's going to take all that over, and they're going to have multi-millions of units to house people in universal basic income to shift around the country. But here's the third thing, and I'll go into this and maybe take a second here. In this $1.9 trillion inflation bill that's coming in, inside there's a rider under it. It's 30/30, and I can't believe it's 3030 is the bill title. What they want to do is do an unrealized gain on your property. What the bill is trying to introduce is that from every year forward, you will need to pay capital gains on property, your house, assets, whatever you have, stocks, bonds, whatever, IRAs. Even though you don't sell it, you're still going to have to pay the capital gains on it every single year. And it's called an unrealized capital gains tax. Now, for your IRA or your stock portfolio, fine. If you get hit with like a $5,000 tax bill, you can sell some shares and you can just pay off your tax bill. But see, that's an extraction of wealth too. Like how many years in a row can you sell that to keep paying that? Because the government's going to keep printing money, and when they do, the inflation's going to take over. So you're always going to be behind the ball trying to pay off. But I want to get to the farmland here, and this is the scariest thing. And for those of out there that own family land, like 100 acres or down, 20 acres, 150 acres, 200, we're the kind of people they want to take out of the game. So here's how it's going to work. And it was explained to me. I had a really good phone call for like 3 hours and I asked a million billion questions. And the way it was explained to me was like that. I took incredible notes when I was talking. So from this year forward, if this bill passes, which it's going to get put in, it's going to pass, but it's still going to have to pass through the Congress and through the Senate. Now, hopefully it'll get stuck somewhere, because if it doesn't, it is the end of private property as you know it, period. It's going to be the largest wealth confiscation in global history if this thing passes through. So they want to take the capital gains. So let's say you bought land for $5,000 an acre. And now it's worth $10,000 an acre because everybody wants to run to the countryside. And see, this is it. They're targeting everybody in the countryside. They're not really targeting people in the suburbs or in the cities. They're going with the countryside land where everybody wants to move to. So if my gain is $5,000 an acre from last year because of massive inflation, the demand is absurd in the countryside, and this never-ending money printing is just driving fake prices everywhere up. So the government's going to want me to pay a capital gains of 30% on that $5,000 on 1 acre. So let's say my tax bill is $1,500. I have the 1 acre. It doubled in price. And now the government's going to say, well, you're not going to sell it, but you still have to pay capital gains on it because you made money on it. Okay, but I didn't sell it. But still, the government said you made money on it. You still have to pay the tax bill. Problem is, if it's financed, if I have a loan from the bank, I can't sell anything. The bank's going to take my money first. I should say the IRS. I can't sell any land to pay the IRS. So for 1 acre, you're going to be really stuck between a rock and a hard place. So your acre goes from $5,000 to $10,000 and you suddenly got a $1,500 tax bill. Well, a lot of people could cover that. But now let's bring it up. Somebody's got 10 acres and they get hit with a $15,000 tax bill. The problem is if it's financed, I cannot even sell 1 acre for $10,000 to then cover. I would sell 1.5 acres and then try to cover my IRS tax bill from that. The problem is the way it's set up. If you sell the land and if your land is financed, the amount you sell goes toward your note or toward your your mortgage on your land. It doesn't go cash into your pocket so you can pay the IRS. And this is where they're going to catch everybody, and they are going to just bend you over a pole on this one. This is the direction it's going. Unless you have gold, silver, or some kind of cryptocurrency left over, they're going to take your land because nobody's going to be able to afford that. So what they're trying to do is take 50, 100, or 200 acre old family land. Because you got to think about the same thing. If you had 100 acres and that land went from $10,000 to say $15,000 an acre, and each acre had gained $5,000, you're looking at $500,000 of capital gains at 30% at $150,000 tax bill. And how much of your land are you going to have to sell off to pay off $150,000 owed to the IRS? Not one time, yearly. And see that the billing, the language in the bill is very opaque. Is it, okay, then it went up to 15,000 and then I paid off that? Okay, great. Now what happens if the price falls back down? See, they never talk about deductions for losses. They only continue to talk about the accrual and value moving forward. So then the next year, they're just going to print more money. So it's going to continue to hyperinflate away. So then, of course, you know, wherever you look in history, when these hyperinflation or massive inflation events come, land could go up 14, 15 times in value in a single year. So the Fed is working in conjunction with whoever, the World Economic Forum, working, trying to ruin our nation and bankrupt and take all land back. And this is the game they're going to play. They're going to hyperinflate you away where you can't pay your taxes. So you'll either have to sell off your land or you can't, because if it's owned by the bank and you're on a note, you're going to have to give up your land, pure and simple.
I'm going to take it to the next level.
Take me to the river.
I knew you were going to, for some reason, I knew you were going to talk about this, and it fits right into my theory about what's really going on. And it's exactly what you said. It's the most extreme case of transformation of wealth and transfer of wealth. With all of that stuff you were talking about, it's a lot to take in and it's kind of overwhelming. So let me tell you on a simple level how this is all going to fit in with everyone's day-to-day life. So we started talking earlier about how the food is at the end of its shelf life and the end of its supply chain when it reaches your dinner table, basically. So the answer to this, hundreds and hundreds of these startup companies, and some that have been doing it for quite some time already, which are companies, corporations, that deliver the food directly to your house. You no longer have to shop or cook or anything. You just kind of like a TV dinner, except for they're claiming it's fresh, you know, it's organic, maybe even from someplace. And there's multiples of these. There's just tons of them. They're going to deliver the food right to your door, right? So this is another reason, not only for you not to ever go outside, it's another reason for you not to ever go to the corporation, where in all aspects of society right now, from local government to federal government, where you can't even talk to them. So they're starting up all of these trends, companies that deliver everything to your home, so you'll no longer have to go out there. But on top of that, think about this. With the introduction of the idea of corporations having the ability to buy cities, incorporated cities, or just start one of their own, where at this corporation, they own everything. They own the diners, they own apartments you live in, they own the transit, AI cars. Sony's talking about having a city, and Toyota is talking about building a smart city where, you know, they own the AI cars that go everywhere. There's these little robots that deliver everything. But then you realize there's nothing to stop them from buying millions or billions of acres of farmland, all the houses, all the restaurants, all the grocery stores, into where you're just in a cell, basically, that you call your house, and you wait for everything. You wait for directions on when you can go outside and get fresh air. You wait for directions on what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it, when it's going to be delivered. Not only that, it takes away all your choices of food. Do I want this or do I want that? I trust these people more than those. All of those choices that people take for granted in their life are all going to be put in the hands of corporations. So just imagine this in the near future. The planet is changing. The weather's horrible. There's aliens outside. Whatever the case may be is the reason, or, you know, the super virus. You can't go outside, but don't worry. We'll send you these delicious green meals directly to your house. Now, how long do you think it's going to switch from these delicious steaks and asparagus meals that look just delicious right here on the picture over to grown in a lab meat or synthetic meat or meat made out of bugs? Because everywhere I look, they're telling you don't even eat the meat. Farming is bad, cattle is bad, but you know what? We're going to replace all of that with old, extinct, or removed species of bison and wildlife to claim and take back all of these eco zones and push the people into the inner city takeover of every aspect of your life, everything.